Welcome to the Penny Z Show, where you get to learn how real people overcame real issues. Get ready to take notes, and most importantly, take action. Here's your host, Penny Z.
Hello, everyone. This is Penny Z with the Penny Z Show, and we are here to transform lives one life at a time, dealing with real, relevant, and relatable topics. Today, I have I'm just so blessed, great and incredible guest that's going to be on our show today. And she has an interesting twist and an interesting career on helping people find their mate. I don't know if that's what she's going to be talking about in overcoming her I'm Not Enough story, which all of you know we are in that series right now. But let me do her a wonderful introduction. Hopefully I will do her justice. And introducing Susan Sheppard. She is an RN, and she has a Bachelor of Science with 40 years of ER nursing and crisis intervention experience, overlapping with her 20 years of relationship coaching. Her expertise in crisis management and saving lives served to lay the foundation for her coaching career. Her varied life experiences continue to complement and contribute to her entrepreneurial spirit and her energy. And I know you'll see her energy when you hear her speak. She became a Californian in 1969 and has lived in Los Angeles ever since. She is the Amazon best-selling award-winning author of not one, but 2 books. The first book is How to Get What You Want from Your Man Anytime, and Dating After 40, No More Excuses, of which I could use both of those. She is highly successful. Her highly successful track record as a coach, both for men and women who are serious about finding, committing to, and maintaining intimacy, passion, and honesty in a hot relationship. I did not do her justice in sharing her bio, so I'm going to introduce Susan Sheppard and ask her to share anything else that she would like to share or any corrections that I might have made. I might be able to speak, but I don't read well all the time. So, Susan, welcome to the Penny Z Show.
Thank you, Penny, and you did me great honors, actually.
Well, thank you. Thank you
very much. The only thing that's missing from that crazy bio is the 10 businesses that I've started, and we're not even going there.
Wow. Well, we can talk about that more offline, but I'm excited
some other time
to talk to you about that and see more about your life and share with you. So as all of you know, we're in a series called Overcoming Your I'm Not Enough story. And many of you have heard my story, and I share bits and pieces as I interview with my podcast guests, and we learn more about them. And so I'm just going to have Susan just kind of delve right in and start sharing what she identified in her life, or at least one of her overcoming her I'm Not Enough story. Susan?
Oh, this is a good one, I think. When I was in high school, I was an honor student. I wanted to take mechanical drawing, but the school board wouldn't allow it because I was a girl. And I was in my junior year getting ready to apply to colleges and filling out financial forms. And I went to my parents and I said, I need help filling out these financial forms. And my dad said, well, you can't go to college. There's no money for you to go to college. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's 6 of you. 3 boys and 3 girls. And we got insurance policies on all of you when you were born. We got $10,000 policies that matured to $20,000 for the boys, but we only got $1,000 policies for the girls that matured to $2,000 so you could get married.
Wow.
And I said, I'm 16. I'm going to be 17 when I graduate. I'm not getting married when I'm 17, and I'm going to school. I have to find a way to do that. He said, well, you're not going to be an engineer. No daughter of mine is going to be an engineer. And I'm like, well, what can I do? He said, well, you could be a teacher or a nurse. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be a teacher. I can imagine you with a bunch of rugrats. No, thank you. So I like science and I like people. Let me check out this nursing thing. And that's how I got to be a nurse, because I found that I could go to Northwestern University, Evanston Hospital School of Nursing, 3-year school of nursing, year round, room and board included, for $2,000.
Wow. Well, first off, I'm glad that you had the tenacity and the boldness to stand up for yourself and do that really in a time that, was hard for women to be able to do that, obviously. But that doesn't necessarily say that we still don't have mentality like that in today's world. And so it can affect multiple generations and multiple experiences. So you are the first to share that type of experience on the Penny Z show. And I'm grateful that you have, and that you are sharing that, because I feel like sometimes we haven't progressed that much even in today's society. So share with me, how did you become bold enough at that moment to move forward? And I love your science background. I'm always fascinated by it, but share a little bit more about that story and that time.
I think I was angry. I was really angry because here I'd been an honor student, and what was the point? Why was I going to school at all? Why was I even going to high school if I couldn't have a higher education? And I didn't understand. Just because I'm a girl, what does that mean? Because I'm a girl, I'm not good enough? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was really angry. I remember, I was a junior in high school, and I'm like, what do you mean I can't go to college? I'm graduating at the top of my class. And what if I wanted to be, I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't even let me take mechanical drawing. And so I was really mad. This was in the 50s. You realize that I'm 75 now.
Well, you look fantastic.
Thank
never
you.
Know that. And your life experiences are just so interesting to me. So, so when you say you're angry, obviously that situation justifies being angry. How did you handle that? How did you recognize your anger? And then what were some of the steps that you worked through? Did you stay angry for a long time? Did you identify it and figure out a way to get over it and forgive and forget? What were some of the experiences around that anger?
Well, my parents, both parents really were male chauvinists. They thought the boys were more important than the girls. Even though my mother used to tell me I could do anything I wanted to do, except they wouldn't really support it. It was like, yeah, you can do anything you want to do as long as you do it yourself. So I didn't really like nursing school. I liked the science part of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the subservient part of it, because we, in those days, I started in 1961. I graduated from nursing school in 1964 as an RN. But we had those pinafore uniforms, the kind that mm-hmm. were starched, and we had to put the buttons in them and put them together. And they measured how far they were from the floor, so that we didn't make them too short.
Wow.
And I felt like I was in a convent the whole time that I was in nursing school. And I was kind of a rebel, I guess. I was in trouble a lot, mostly for standing up for things that I believed in. And my senior year, I was sort of on social probation because I told the director of the school she was a bitch.
Well, but I think a lot of people do get in trouble when you try to stand up for yourself and stand up for what's right.
It was such a confining environment, and it was so it really was about, we had to stand up when the doctors came in the room and give up our chairs and things like that, and I didn't like it. I felt it like it was demeaning. And so actually when I graduated, I did graduate, and I graduated with honors, because I'm kind of smart sometimes. But when I graduated, I sat down and I said, I don't really want to be a nurse. Maybe I'll go to medical school. Maybe I'll be a doctor. But I knew I had to pay for it myself, so I have to get a job. So if I'm going to get a job, where can I work in this hospital where I don't have to do the things I won't do? And I made a list of the things I wouldn't do. And they were kind of the everyday things, like charting about people's eating habits and bowel movements and how they slept and that nonsense, and giving bed baths to dirty old men, and just those kind of things. It was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to pass trays of medications to patients that I don't know. So I made a list of where in the hospital I could work where I didn't have to do those things. Mm-hmm. And the only two places I came up with was the operating room and the emergency room.
Okay.
The operating room, the patients were all unconscious, so I wouldn't get to talk to them anyway. And it was freezing in there all the time. So that was out. So I was left with the emergency room. Well, when I was a student in the emergency room, there was a robbery in the hospital, and one of the security guards got shot, and I got my picture on the front page of the Chicago Sun-Times, wheeling this guy out of the emergency room. And I thought, well, maybe I could even get famous being an ER nurse. And ironically, it turns out that it was a pretty good way to make a decision, because I actually loved the ER, and I ended up staying there for 40 years. And the reason I loved it was because the nurses got to see the patients first and tell the doctors what to do. And we had a lot of autonomy and got to do a lot of things on our own before we even consulted with the doctors. And it was crisis intervention, and it was saving lives. And I never had to do the same thing 2 days in a row for 40 years. So I loved it. And I loved it until I was done. 40 years worth.
Well, and you got to be yourself and independent and strong and a decision maker and do the things that you do so well. And so, you know, I find it fascinating, because I almost don't feel like you have a I'm not enough story. You were enough, you know. I feel like people were trying to keep you down. Some of us, like me, we came from a sabotaging ourself mindset because we came from a weaker perspective from kids. And I feel like even despite, and I don't know what kind of childhood you have, but you were bold enough and strong enough growing up in you know, elementary and high school and then moving to college, that you had that tenacity, you had that self-confidence, that boldness. You just had societal issues that were trying to keep you down and in a box, which I admire.
Don't think I was super strong all the time. I wasn't Wonder Woman all the time. Sometimes.
Well, you sound very good. I'm sure none of us are Wonder Woman all the time, but I think some people have a little bit more, whether it's mentorship or coaching or just boldness or something in their early years to kind of help them, you know, at least have a leg up when they go through life. And so I guess that's what I'm trying to compliment you and
thank you.
And let you know that I feel like you were a lot farther along, let's say, than I was, and maybe other people were.
Well, there were other elements. There were other elements that contributed to my not being enough.
Well, share some of that with us if you have.
Well, I had a weight problem from age 8 on. I was actually molested when I was about 9 by an 18-year-old nephew of somebody who lived down the street. He dragged me out in the lake over my head and ripped off my bathing suit and molested my body and told me he was going to drown me if I told anybody. Well, I of course went and told my dad, but the interesting thing about it was that my dad went down and talked to him and his aunt and yelled at them, and then it was never mentioned again, ever, by my family or anybody else. So I had to deal with it myself, and I don't feel like it inhibited me sexually or, you know, with my femininity, but it did make me feel like I wasn't important enough as a girl to fight for me. And I really believe that all of the work that I've done, all these different businesses, and particularly my coaching, the relationship coaching stuff, it's about empowering women to own their feminine power and really step into their femininity and use it the way it's meant to be used, instead of using it to manipulate people, but really by owning it and stepping into it. And so a lot of the work that I do as a relationship coach, particularly with the women, actually I do it with the men too, because I tell the men the same thing, that women have all the power in relationship. Men don't have any power in relationship, and it's really their choice to not have it there. They would rather have it in the rest of the world. But women have the power in relationship, which is actually the foundation of everything. Because you cannot have politics without relationship, or business without relationship, or sales without relationship, or sports, especially the male athletic competitive sports, without relationship. So ultimately, women have the most power in the world because we have the power in relationship.
I have not heard that said that way before. So that's very interesting, something to ponder. And I appreciate you bringing it up the way you brought it up. Yeah, I like that. And that's what this show is really about, is helping women to empower themselves to live, their best life, and to live be their best selves and to live their best lives. And whatever that looks like, whether it's, taking your health back, or, learning how to overcome your I'm not enough story, financial success or stability, working in a man's world, and what does that look like? So, wow.
Well, the issue I started with was the weight problem, and
Mm-hmm.
I gained and lost 100 pounds 12 times.
Wow. Okay.
So when I was always on the upside, I definitely had I'm not enough issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not enough of a woman. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not, I don't have what it takes because I'm obese, But then when I was on the lower end, I was okay,
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized, and what I've realized, and what I teach in my coaching, is that it's really irrelevant because men really don't notice it. Women do.
So talk a little bit more about that. How did you discover your I'm not enough story with your weight loss? And then what were some of the things that you did, obviously, to manage it, but to make that mind shift change, that women care and not men?
Well, the part about the women caring is women are very competitive with each other. Actually, they're women go to doubt about their attractiveness, period. That's the first thing they'll go to doubt about. Men go to doubt about their ability to produce results. And my whole theory about relationships is that it's based on the metaphor of the sex act, that men have to produce and women have to receive in order for the sex act to be successful. And if you think about a relationship in those terms, men have to produce and women have to receive. Women need to learn how to receive properly so that they don't take things for granted, or assume that men can read their minds, which most women do. They think that men should know what they want.
But I'm guilty.
Well, the truth is, one of the biggest faults in relationship that women have is that they assume that men know as much as they do about what's going on in their relationship. And they don't, because men are really clueless, truly clueless about what women want. Whereas women, if they stay in touch with their intuition and their innate sense of knowing, they know when something is going on in their relationship that isn't working. And they really know what it is. Most times, people are willing to sell out to comfort rather than confronting it. Mm-hmm. And that's why people stay in relationships for long periods of time that aren't working, because they're not willing to stand up for what they believe in, and really say, this is the sense I'm getting. Something's going on here. Something's not working in our relationship, and I'm not willing for this to be this way. And rather than do that, they will sell out to the comfort of ignoring it or being in denial about it.
And so is that part of a fear? Is that part of the, I'm not necessarily, I'm not good enough, but I'm trying to figure out the words right here.
It is a part of the I'm not good enough, because literally women have low self-esteem in relationships.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah.
They go to doubt about their attractiveness immediately. That's the first thing they doubt about. The other thing is, and we're going to go a little X-rated here, if you don't mind. But
sure.
Women like sex just as much as men do, but it's not socially acceptable for them to say so. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, women never, I'm not going to say never, but women rarely will teach a man how to satisfy her. Mm-hmm. And the reason they don't is because they're embarrassed, because it takes them longer to get turned on. And so consequently, women have doubts about their sexuality. They have doubts about their ability to perform. They have doubts about their attractiveness. And so they are afraid to say anything because they think the man is going to leave them. Whereas really men want to know what women want. They really do want to know. They really do want to please us, but they're clueless and they don't know how to ask for that. And so consequently, they miss each other. They kind of go like this and this, you know, and men want approval.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus mentality.
Yeah. Men want approval, appreciation, and sex, not necessarily in that order. Women want acknowledgement of their intelligence. They want appreciation for taking care of everyone, and sensuality,
right,
and seduction.
And
so sense. They're like this. They miss each other unless the women learn to ask for what they want. And that's one of the things that I teach all of my clients is how to ask for what you want from the person who can give it to you in a way that they can hear you and are willing and want to give it to you.
So Susan, I love what you're talking about. And could you share with our listeners, so when you're working with people, and maybe there's just one or two little tips you can start, because obviously you have a fantastic, very successful coaching program, which we will, share at the end of our show and all of our, social media and website, how to get in touch with you for our listeners who do want to. But when you're working with a woman and she's coming from a less than or a low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence position, is there one or two things that you start working with and or a few tools and techniques you can share that can kind of help them along the way before they start coaching with you?
Yes. So I have a 5-step process, and my second step is called the Love Yourself step. And it is what I have all of my clients who are seeking a relationship do, men and women. I have them all do this. And it's a very unique thing. And everyone thinks it's like looking for the one, the mate, the perfect partner, whatever. But it really has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is healing your wounds, your broken heart, your wounded heart, growing your self-esteem, and defining what are the values and the important things that you're looking for, and also defining your deal breakers. And then growing your self-esteem to the point where you are really capable of walking into any room, anywhere, looking around and going, I'll take that one, and invite that person into your life, and they will come. Without any hesitation. And I don't care how young, old, thin, fat, ugly, beautiful, stunning, whatever, famous, whatever you are. This system works, and it's very unorthodox. I tell everybody you have to maintain the mindset that you are not looking for a relationship. You are just doing research. You don't care what this other person thinks about you, so you're free to say whatever you want to say. And I tell them, go out and meet 40 people that you're not attracted to.
Wow. Why 40?
It's an arbitrary number. I picked it out of the sky.
A lot, I think a lot of times they say when you're trying to change habits, I don't know if it's, 40 days and 40 nights, or if that's a biblical sense, or, trying to change habits by 21 days or something. So I didn't know if that.
It's like 40 was a big enough number that it scared people.
Yeah.
But it was doable. It's a number that's actually doable. So go out and meet 40 new people. And I tell them, go meet every culture, every race, every age. I want you to go younger. I want you to go older. I want you to go education-wise, and just one homeless, one billionaire. Go out and meet people that you normally do not encounter. And make sure that if there's those ones that you go, oh, this is the one, that you avoid them. Because those are the ones that your barcode, your other than conscious mind has programmed to attract for you. And those are the ones your broken picker attracts.
Broken picker. I like that.
Yeah. They're the ones, my favorite clients are the ones who've been married 4 times or who've had serial bad relationships, where they keep having the same relationship over and over, even though the person starts out looking totally different and ends up being the same. Those are my favorites.
I think there's a lot of us out there probably that have that.
Well, the thing about it is that that filter that you developed in the first 7 years of your life, or before you were born even. I mean, it could be from, if you believe in it, a past life, or from whenever, and while you're in the womb, for all that matter, you develop filters. And those filters are the people that you attract to you, and the ones that you go instantly, oh, this is the one. If you had a bad role model, let's say, to begin with, or a role model that was defective in some way, chances are that's who you're going to attract, because that's who you're comfortable with.
Right.
And that's what that barcode is, or that filter. And that's what needs to change. So by meeting 40 people who are outside your comfort zone, who are people that maybe you wouldn't normally be attracted to, or that you were intimidated by, or that you were absolutely didn't like, what happens is it stretches your comfort zone. It expands your perception of who's out there for you. And then you can see the real, authentic people that are out there looking for the beautiful you.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that you brought up, you know, going back up to the age of 7, because I'm a firm believer that a lot of our expectations and how we react and respond to our life as adults are affected by our early years in childhood development. And, you know, that's where I had recognized and identified my overcoming my story of not enough was when I was 6 years old. And, you know, my brother got hurt. And so my mom's like, why aren't you taking care of your brother? And so I interpreted that. It was me interpreting, not my mom blaming me or anything, that I wasn't good enough. And so instead of just letting that situation stop and kind of stop, drop, and roll, as I say, I grabbed onto that. And so therefore I had a mindset moving forward that when bad things happened in my life, or I created them, or they happened to me, then I just wasn't good enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't athletic enough. And so I agree with you 100% that as I'm going on my personal journey, not only in my personal relationships, friendship, as well as, you know, intimate relationships, it does come from our expectations and what we perceived as a child and teenagers, and how we carry that forward in our interpretation in our life. So that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's magical to watch people go through this process. Because by the time they've done the first 10, if they do it really with following the rules that I give them, they're not dating, you can't get involved, you can't start and say, oh, this is the one, except, you know,
I can date you in 40 days.
He's perfect, but, you know, you really, I tell them, look, you need to dismiss each one of them. You need to say, thank you for sharing. I appreciate the time you've spent with me. And when they ask you out, because they will, because you've spent 20 minutes or an hour asking them wonderful questions about themselves, because I tell them, find out, what are your highest value? What are you passionate about? And how do you really treat women? Or how do you really treat men? And when they're asking these questions, well, your attention is on this other person, and that person loves it. They love having your attention on them, and they usually will ask you out. And I tell them, you have to say no. You have to say, thank you for sharing, but I'm not ready for that. And if it's somebody you think you could be interested in, you can get their number, but you can't go out with them yet. You have to say, thank you for sharing. I appreciate the time you've spent with me, but I'm just doing research right now, coming out of a bad relationship, getting over a divorce, whatever, you know, I'm just not ready yet, but I'll call you when I am, and walk away. Because the walking away is the most powerful self-esteem grower there is. Women tell me after they've done it, I feel so powerful. I feel like, oh, I said no. Because really, men won't make a move unless you give them an okay. You have to give them permission to talk to you. Did you know that?
I did not know that. No.
Sometimes, I mean, all you have to do is smile at them or look them in the eyes and open your mouth. I mean, I tell people, if you want to start a conversation with a man, just say something. And they say, you say what? I said, I don't, say like, isn't this a blue sky in this elevator? It doesn't matter. You could say anything. You just have to open your mouth and have a word come out so that he knows it's okay to talk to you.
That is some great advice right there. I mean, you have had several pearls, but again, not something that I think is commonly known, and especially to us women. So that's amazing. I have a question for you. When you're doing the exercise and you're working with people on helping with their self-esteem and self-confidence, I call it purposeful dating for myself. But I also went through an exercise this last year in writing down the vision for my ideal mate so that I know what I'm looking for. And like what you were saying with getting to know the character, the values, it's really an exercise on you. And what do you want? And I kind of did it like I broke it out in 5 different categories: spiritual, physical, career, financial, values. And then I started writing down kind of what I thought I wanted in an ideal mate. And then when you start talking to people, i.e. men, you start looking for those traits. So do you do that as well? Or am I like way off base, or am I overdoing too much?
No, actually,
I call it purposeful dating.
The Meet 40 exercise. I call it an exercise. Okay. It usually takes people a couple months to do it, to meet 40, to really do it right. I insist that they keep a journal, and the journal has to have in it an identifier, what you are attracted to, and make it something different for each person, what turns you off, what you learned about men in general, and what you learned about yourself in the exercise for each of those. And by the time you're done and you have this journal of the 40 men, we're going to talk about 40 men because you're a woman. Okay. When you're done with your 40 men, you have identified in what you're attracted to, the things that are important to you. You've also identified your deal breakers, because the things that will keep coming up, that this is what turned me off. And one of my girls, her deal breaker was, I will not tolerate a man talking down to me, being condescending to me. No, absolutely not. And I'm like, great, that's one of your deal breakers. And she said, it is, because I won't be in a relationship with somebody who's condescending with me, or controlling, or any number of things, but you're going to identify these things. So actually, you're doing it in the process of doing my Meet 40 exercise. You're doing exactly what you did, except you did it without doing the stretching part. 40 people. The stretching, the 40 stretches.
Well, I live in a very small town, and I've been choosing to be somewhat invisible in that area. So
the thing is,
I'll change for 2019.
The funny part is that you can do it with anybody. Like I tell people, do it with the checkers. I do it all the time. I'm constantly doing this exercise on my own. And I was in TJ Maxx one day checking out, and you know how they have these big lines and you have a checker, and there was this really cute young man that was checking me out. I think I was checking out 3 things, and in that 5 minutes I talked to him, I got all the answers. So it gets to be fun. And the people, when they first start doing it, they tell me, first of all, they tell me 40 is way too many. And I'm like, okay, all right, but do it anyway. And then they tell me, how do I do this? And I said, just talk to people, have a conversation. Sit down next to someone in a park bench, have a conversation, on a bus, on an airplane, in the grocery, in the produce department of the grocery is a great place. Because you can talk to men in the produce department because they don't know what they're doing. And they're fun. One night I went to the grocery store at midnight. I was running in just to pick up coffee for the morning or something, and I pulled in, and I have a little sports car, a little BMW Z3, and it's an old one. And this Porsche came zooming in and pulled up next to me, and he got out of the car and he goes, nice car. And I'm like, yours is nicer. And we ended up talking in the parking lot for an hour.
Uh-huh.
And it had this absolutely fabulous conversation about relationships. And he told me, he says, oh, I was one of the bad boys, those bad boys that would dump girls all the time. And I'm like, well, gave him my books. And we had this great conversation at midnight in the parking lot of the Vaughn's grocery store.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fantastic. Well, Susan, I could talk to you for hours, but I do have to wrap up the show here. So I'd like to leave with two things. First off, if there's any words of wisdom or advice or anything you would like to leave our listeners on from the topics that we have talked about and overcoming their I'm not enough story, either as a child and growing up or from a dating perspective. Obviously, you've got several very interesting topics that I could go on with. And then also, after sharing your final pieces of advice, if you would also share with our listeners how they can reach you to have a conversation with you.
Okay. Well, my advice to people is to trust your body. Your body tells you how you feel about things. And if you get a clutch feeling in your stomach, pay attention to it. If you feel a pain somewhere, pay attention to it. So listen to what your body's telling you, because that's your other than conscious mind communicating with you. So pay attention and really listen to your intuition when it's telling you something, because as a woman, your intuition is always right. And if you get a feeling that something's off, it is. So that would be my first advice. And that goes for not being enough, because really we are enough. Everybody's enough. Mm-hmm. We're the best we're ever going to be any moment of any day. So trust your intuition and your body and your knowing to tell you that you are enough. I think that that's really, really important. And that really your body and how you look, and even if you have deformities or whatever, that's not who you are. Who you are is your heart and your soul and your identity that's deep within you. And trust that, you're really good.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. I love that. Absolutely. So how can our listeners get a hold of you, Miss Susan?
Oh, they can go to my website, gettingwhatyouwant.com. And it's just like it sounds, Getting What You Want. And at the top, there's a little button that says Talk with Susan. Mm-hmm. And then you can go to my schedule and book a time to talk with me. I will talk to anybody for an hour for free, see if I can help them.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time and your talent and sharing your story on the Penny Z Show today. We will also have links to Susan's website so that you can reach her. And we will also be promoting the show, obviously, on our website, social media, on the iPod, Apple, and Android apps. So you'll be able to get to see, listen, and hear from Susan as many times as you'd like to listen. And we're so blessed to have her on the show. And this is Penny Z, and we thank you all very much with the Penny Z Show. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, including specific ways to empower yourself, go to thepennyzshow.com.